What is up, everybody? Welcome into MLB Swing for the Fences here. 14 minutes late, not because we weren't ready, not because we weren't talking baseball for the last 10 minutes stats, but yours truly forgot to hit go live on the StreamYard here. So completely my fault, and apologies for people waiting. Apologies to you, stats, wasting your time there. But, it happens once or twice a season, hopefully not much more than that. So we're back here talking today's 9-game MLB slate. Not a lot of time for pleasantries because we do have a half an hour start. We got to get through all 9 games. So, again, my bad on the late start. But with that, let's get back into it, stats. We're going to have to redo it. We're going to go right to Baltimore to talk about the game we just talked about. But the people need to hear our thoughts here. Cade Povich going for the Orioles. Carlos Carrasco for the Yankees. We talked no real interest in the pitchers here, but both offenses look like they're in a pretty good spot here. Tell me again, stats, what you doing with Yankees and Orioles bats?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit ago, but Carlos Carrasco, worst play for me pitching wise on the entire slate. His best years are definitely behind him, and then Povich rated out right in the middle at 5,500. For me, it's an odd slate because we've got, we don't have a lot of great pitching yet. None of the team totals are all that high. So you're going to have ownership kind of spread out at the pitchers and in these stacks. So I think if we can nail some of these, if you nail the stacks here tonight, you should get pretty high up on the leaderboard because we just don't have that Coors game or one of these, Dodger games where they've got a 5.9 run total, anything like that. So I think, if we can nail it, we're going to do well from this. So like I said, the pitching on this game, don't really love. The Yankees are projecting out as the third best 5-man stack as far as the boom sheet goes. But the Baltimore bats look good to me as 2- and 3-man stacks. We talked about it earlier. Cedric Mullins and Gunnar Henderson really show well here on the Boom Report at the higher price. And then you've got Ramon Laureano, who also rates out well, and a lot of that has to do with his price at just 2,300. I think the cheapest bat on the entire slate here tonight. So we've got what I like here is I like some Yankee 5-man stacks, and I like secondary stacks with Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, Judge leading the way against the soft-tossing lefty Cade Povich, who came up with some hype behind him. But, man, it's been a struggle for Povich both last year, this year. Orioles pitching staff overall has been awful. I believe the worst ERA in all of baseball. So not a tremendous bullpen behind Povich either, assuming the Yankees can get to some damage early. So I'm with you on the Yankees. Judge, obviously, a play I think we need to get to. And then Gunnar and Cedric Mullins, those two guys at the top of the Orioles lineup, hitting 1-2, I think make a ton of sense. I think it makes sense to even cut it off at a 2-man stack, or like you mentioned, Laureano, mostly due to the price, I think, at 2,300, a good play. But he will get the matchup with Carrasco as well. So, yeah, good spot to start for bats. And I do think it is mostly kind of the big names that you want. Judge, Mullins, and Henderson, all really good plays. But I do think the Yankee stack especially could get there if they're able to knock Povich out early. Could be a big day for the Yankees in Camden Yards. Let's get to Chicago and the Pittsburgh Pirates up next. This one in Pittsburgh. Matthew Boyd going for the Cubs, who's faced some of the toughest early matchups of any pitcher in baseball. He's faced the Dodgers twice, the Padres twice, and the Diamondbacks. So teams that score a lot of runs and teams that generally, put the ball in play too. So his numbers, given those matchups, have been really impressive. And we have seen in the past, it hasn't been all the time stats, but we have seen good prolonged stretches for Matthew Boyd where he does look like not an ace, but a really solid MLB arm. And it looks like to me, given the matchups and his performances, like he's in one of those stretches right now. Good spot here against the Pirates, who really, it's mostly just O'Neal Cruz that you're scared of for Boyd. And that's a lefty-lefty matchup that I don't love for Cruz. So good spot for Boyd. On the other side, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, Mlodzinski will go up against the Cubs, one of the best, if not the best offense in baseball on the young season. And it's been rough for Mlodzinski, who is getting unlucky. He's not as bad as his 7 ERA would indicate, but certainly not a pitcher you need to fear by any means. And we know what this Cubs lineup can do. Several of these hitters high up on the boom report: Happ, Tucker, Crow Armstrong, I think Michael Busch up there as well. So pretty good spot for the Cubs bats. Talk to me stats. What are you doing with Cubs and Pirates here?
Yeah, pitching wise, Boyd rates really well. I've got him as the third best option on the slate, really close to being the second best option. So he's clearly going to be in the mix. You've got on a slate with kind of weak pitching. He projects out one of the better K per inning pitchers on the entire slate. 5.5 is the K prop in the betting markets, juice slightly to the under. I have no interest at all in Mlodzinski. 3.5 is his pitching, is his K prop, and I've got him as the second worst pitcher on the entire slate. I think the Pittsburgh bats just I just can't get behind them. We talk about O'Neal Cruz. He's really been their only option, and I don't even like him as a one-off on this matchup tonight. So I'm going to stay away from the Pittsburgh bats. Cub bats look pretty good. There's some better, at least rated wise, on the boom report. But you've got Tucker, Crow Armstrong, and Suzuki topping at the top in the elite level. Right under that, Happ and Busch. But this potentially is the highest owned stack of the night, or the Cub stacks. So you really want to be careful, I think, on a slate like this, getting here's what you have to do, in my opinion. If you do like the Cub stacks, then I think you go hard on it. Right. So I don't want to spread it out. I think if you do believe that the Cubs here with the highest team total, I've got it just under 5 as their team total. I think it's Saber is projecting it a little bit more than that. I'm just basing it off the betting markets. If you want to go ahead and take the highest owned, one of the higher owned stacks of the night, I think you just have to go heavy. I think if I'm single entering, I'm not even considering it, because I think everyone is so close here. But if you have conviction here with the Cubs, you're playing 20 lineups, you're playing 150 max, and you really like you have to go strong. I don't think we could spread it out. Like if you run it through Saber or the optimizer, or however you're going to run it. If you do the Sims, it's going to give you something totally different. But just running it through the optimizer, you may get quite a bit of Cubs. I haven't done it myself yet. I should say you may get your lineups kind of spread out. And I don't know if that's the option that you want here today. I think we've got to take some. We got to have a little conviction. Pick a few of these stacks that we like. Pick a few of these pitchers that we like, and really lean into it heavily, because we're going to have low ownerships throughout. If we can nail it, we got a good shot at taking down a big one tonight.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, that's Cubs and Pirates. Let's get to the next game on the slate. We go to Great American Ballpark for one of the two pitchers who will make their MLB debut today. Cincinnati right-hander Chase Petty will start this game against the Cardinals in Cincinnati. Petty looks okay to me from his minor league numbers, getting a decent amount of strikeouts. It looks like he's like kind of a true starting pitcher. Some talent there. He's 6,600. I think he's at least in the discussion at starting pitcher today at that price tag. Obviously, extremely volatile, right? Going up, pitching in Great American where home runs are plentiful. Matchup is just okay. And I think on most slates, I try to find a different option. On this one, though, stats, I do like Petty at least a little bit. And then Steven Matz will go for the Cardinals. His surface numbers have been really, really strong so far, pitching out of the bullpen for the most part for St. Louis. I believe he did make one kind of spot start, I think against Houston, where he went 5 innings. I would expect maybe 75-ish pitches from Matz. I did dig into him to see, just because of the service results, if there's anything that maybe he's changed, and I don't really see it with Matz. I think he's kind of the same guy he's always been, which is a pretty hittable lefty for the most part. So, I do think these Reds bats have got to be in play, specifically the right-handed power, and the Reds certainly have some of it. McLean, Marte, Steer, obviously you can include guy like Elly De La Cruz switch hitting from the shortstop position. So yeah, I think I like the Cincinnati bats a little bit better, but I do think Petty against the Cardinals is one where you could definitely play both sides. And Victor, Victor Scott looks good, but Newbar and Donovan also look like pretty good plays. Both of them homered in the early game. This game, the second half of a doubleheader, they had their game rained out yesterday. So a lot going on in this one. Mats, Petty, Cardinals, and Reds. What do you got for us, stats?
Yeah, I mean, pitching wise, with Mats, I mean, just 13.5 as far as outs, and that's juiced to the under in the betting market. So, I mean, we're just not expecting to get him to go even into the fifth inning. Or I guess just about into the fifth is all they're really expecting. With a 3.5 strikeout juice to the over number there. So I don't have a lot of interest here in Mats at 7,800. Petty, I agree with you. I think at the 6,600, he's definitely in the mix. He's got one of the better K per 9 numbers. It's kind of just right there with Boyd. Now we don't expect as many innings, perhaps, in the outs is 14.5 out total in the prop market. Juice to the over isn't all that great either. But we're on a slate here where we don't have a lot of great options. So we're kind of really looking at prices, and 6,600. Affords you to maybe to do some things with some of the more expensive stacks out there, some of the more expensive bats that you may want to fit in some singles and secondary stacks. So I do think Petty should be getting some play. And when we look at Sabre, I looked at it; they have them very, very low ownership on there. So I think getting up to maybe 10% on Petty's is going to be worthwhile. And with that, with that said, the Boom Report does like some St. Louis stacks here as far as value goes. So I think we're getting a lot of value from St. Louis bats. So I think you could play both sides here. I think the top end, the high end, McLean and De La Cruz look like the best options in the entire game. But the bulk of the next like 10 hitters are going to be, the bulk of those guys are going to be St. Louis. Wynn, Walker, Contreras, topping that all out. Donovan and Newbar all rate out really well also. So if you're looking for one of the more value stacks, I think St. Louis has it for you. And you could even play, you could play this as a game stack with St. Louis as your primary, and then go with the secondary stack on Cincinnati. Don't mind that at all either in this one.
Yeah, especially in the second half of the doubleheader, bullpen's worn out a little bit. It does make a lot of sense. I think this is a good question from Trevor Bryan. I've got an opinion, but the question is for you. Cubs one-off nonsensical. I kind of assume he's, referring to playing a one-off on the
like
most popular stack of the night. What are your thoughts there, Stats?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I don't think the ownership is that high here, even in the Cubs stacks, that it makes that it's just not a smart move. So I think you could do it. I think you could do it with obviously you're gonna want to do this with one of their big home run bats, and Tucker's the obvious choice. But I'm not against it. I don't know. Maybe you are, DC, but I'm okay with it.
I'm mostly okay with it just because of the Cubs. I mean, a lot of what you're looking for here is power. I mean, Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, Bush, all those guys capable of doing it alone, while the stack, disappoints for the most part because they've all got the power. Even Crow Armstrong, right? He's got power and speed. I don't like to do it on popular stacks with, singles hitters, right? Who kind of the whole stack's got to get going. So I wouldn't do it with Nico Horner or John Birdie, but the power bats where you're mostly home run hunting, I do think it's fine. Yeah, that's for stats. I'll shut up. I won't answer. If you got a question for stats, throw it in there and I'll refrain from answering next time. But I do think pretty good question in all seriousness there.
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Let's get to Philadelphia and Washington. Up next, Jake Irvin going for the Nationals. I think a pretty good spot for this left-handed power from the Phillies side. This one in Philadelphia. A little bit of winds blowing in, but should play decently well for power. And we know Philly's got a lot of it, specifically Harper and Schwarber in the 3 and 4 holes. And then my guy, Christopher Sanchez, will look to bounce back from a very strange start. I was really high on him in his last start did not go well. You kind of see it from the first pitch. Velocity was down, just wasn't very sharp. Only got through 2 innings against the Mets. Frankly, it could have ended up worse than it did. The 2 earned runs could have been worse. He did not look great. After the start stats, he said he had some forearm tightness, which can often be the precursor to Tommy John surgery, which obviously puts pitchers out for a whole year. And then the next day, they said, no, he feels fine. They elected not to send him for an MRI, which seems weird. Why not find out? It makes me think that they don't want to know, right? Get back out there and pitch. So I don't know what to do with Sanchez. I do think, if he's healthy, which I guess he probably is, he's got what is it? I think the outs prop is 17.5 with significant juice to the over. So the betting market thinks Sanchez is good to go here. I think that's got to be the most likely outcome. Makes me a little bit nervous, but he does have a good matchup against the Nationals here. I do think he's a better pitcher than the price tag would imply, and I might have to take my medicine now. 2 Sanchez starts in a row here because I think I'm going back to the well. Partly because I can't have it. Gets injured when I play him, and then I fade him the next start, and he shoves on me. So I guess I'll take the risk of going down with the Sanchez train. 2 starts in a row. What are you doing? Stats with Sanchez and the rest of this game, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Sanchez rates out. He's my top pitcher on the slate. And then you have to kind of dig deeper. I mean, and it's a significant, he's in first here overall by a significant amount, but we're going to get a decent amount of ownership on him as well. I'm curious to know. I think if it was a slate where we had a few better pitching options, he would not get as much ownership as maybe he normally would have had he not had that outing against the Mets and the elbow or the forearm tightness. On this slate, I think people are going to want to bite the bullet and just say, well, he looks like the best option out there. So I'm inclined in those situations to kind of get under the market. Sabres got him at 44, 45%. I think I'd have to stay under that. And I'm going to be, kind of messing with some of these cheap pitchers and just hoping that we get some of the expensive bats that I pair him with to go off. So I don't know if I can get to 50% in my 150 builds on Sanchez here. I mean, if he burns me, he burns me, but I'll have a significant amount, maybe 30, but I'm not getting up to 50%. As you mentioned, if you look at the betting markets, I mean, the betting markets really aren't concerned. 17.5 juice to the over on his outs pretty much is
that's what I would have expected it to be with no injury concerns whatsoever.
Exactly. So, that's a non-injury concern. And the fact that he didn't get the MRI, kind of leads you to believe it was no big deal. Or like you said, maybe they just don't want to know. It's kind of like me going to the mailbox. Like there's nothing good ever comes in my mailbox. So I try not to open it, but so, and then you look at Irvin, we didn't even talk about Irvin, but 4.5 strikeouts. I've got him pretty much down near the bottom. So when we're looking at this game, I don't like really much of anything on the Washington side. This is all Philly. Obviously Sanchez, and then the bats. I mean, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, Realmuto, all rate out on the elite level. So you can make some really good, I think, 5-man stacks on the Philly side, as well as, if you want to take them as a secondary stack. But I think the Philly bats here strong tonight against Irving. And how you're going to play Sanchez is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be crucial to your success on tonight's slate. I think the sharper way on 150 stacks, that is, or 150 lineups, that is to be under on Sanchez tonight. But we'll find out in a few hours if I'm right about that.
Yeah, a couple of people asking about single entry, and it sounds like your answer is
single entry. I think might be a little bit different. Well, I think I might just take him. I might just take him in a single entry and then try to figure out which one of these other pitchers I want to go with them. I might just take away just use like kind of the free squeeze. If he's going to be 50%, if you're playing in the single entries, he's going to be even higher owned.
Yeah, I would say isn't the even higher ownership, which is almost always true for the chalk pitchers in single entry, more reason to look elsewhere, or no?
Yeah, there's two trains, two fields of thought, two trains of thought there. Typically if we don't play a lot of single entry, but if we do, it's going to be a higher stake. And a lot of times I just want to kind of take away, if there's going to be a player 60, 70% owned, unless I just have a really, really real conviction about a couple other, in this case, pitchers. And I don't on this slate. So I'd rather just not make that. I'd rather be right with my secondary pitcher and just match them, match everybody else on that one and try to get different. If I'm taking two chalky pitchers, that might change it. And then maybe I'll say I'll get off. So if I'm taking my second pitcher is going to be the second highest owned pitcher on the slate, maybe in that case, I'll get off of a Sanchez. But in all likelihood, I think you're probably going to want to just in single entry take them and then take a pitcher who's going to be a lot less owned that you may like if you have one that you like here. And I think there are a few that we could go with.
Any interest in a national stack here? Again, no, even with the potential.
Now, again, I don't like it because it doesn't project out that well. If we take this from a game theory standpoint, it kind of plays into the same thing that I'm talking about with being under the market on Sanchez. So I don't necessarily like Washington stacks, but go ahead if you're gonna get low, if you're gonna be low on Sanchez in your 150s, then you're definitely going to want to put some Washington stacks in there as well, even though I don't necessarily like them. Why not just let's go for the full leverage play here? And if something does happen with his arm, he comes out of this game early, or something's up with the arm and he just doesn't have the good stuff, we might be able to capitalize on a absolutely unowned Washington stacks. So I don't mind that in the 150 builds. Probably not getting there, single entries. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'll get to a national stack, but it does seem like a decent idea given they're super low owned. You get the leverage against Sanchez. He's coming off. I mean, he didn't have it. He was clearly pitching through something in his last start, and he's back out there for the next one. So I know the prop market differs, but there has to be at least a decently higher chance that there's something wrong with Sanchez than there would normally be, given what we saw last start. So, yeah, if you're playing a bunch of lineups and you're kind of lower on Sanchez, I think I would get some national stacks in there. If you're going that direction, I mean, James Wood, it's got to be near the top. Dylan Cruz swinging a good bat. So there are some decent options on the Nationals if you do want to play the super contrarian style. Let's get to KC and Tampa. We're back in Yankee Stadium South in Tampa here. We've got the other pitcher making his MLB debut for the Royals, lefty Noah Cameron, who also looked, I think, pretty decent in the minor leagues. I wouldn't be shocked to see him have some success here at the big league level. Whether or not that will come tonight, we'll see. There are strikeouts to be had against this Rays lineup, but obviously also a dangerous place to pitch. Going to be in the mid 80s and fairly humid in Tampa. Ball should be flying here. A dangerous spot for Cameron. I do think when you get a 4K kind of like, somewhat legit starting pitcher, I think you can throw 80, 90 pitches here. You almost have to be in play, especially when the strikeouts could be there. But this 2-3-4 stack for the Rays against the lefty, Yandy Diaz, Christopher Morel, Junior Caminero is one of my favorite kind of mini stacks on the whole slate. So I do think you can play both sides of it. And then Drew Rasmussen going for the Rays. It's been pretty solid this year, and he does get a matchup against a light-hitting Royals team. Still, at least on paper, kind of a low strikeout matchup, which could hold him back. But I do think the run prevention should be there for Rasmussen. Over to you, Stats. Your thoughts here on Rays and Royals?
Yeah, this is one kind of agreeing with you, and I'll get to that in a sec. But we got Rasmussen. He's 4.5 strikeouts in the betting market to the over. They're looking at just 15.5 outs and juice to the under. And with Cameron, 3.5 strikeouts, heavy juice to the over, 14.5 outs, juice to the over as well. So when I look at my ratings here on the pitchers, I've got Rasmussen, 4th best option on the slate, and then Cameron as the 6th best option. So that, they're going to be in the mix. With that said, I kind of agree with where you were going. The Tampa bats look really good to me as well. So I think this is one of those cases where we can play both sides. And, a lot of that has to do with just price here. I mean, we're looking at a 4K pitcher with some strikeout potential. I mean, to get the amount of if we get 4 or 5 strikeouts at 4K, no brainer. So I'll take that. So I think he's got to be in the mix. Probably not going to be heavily owned. 8 to 10% seems to be about what Sabre's looking at. I think again, I'll push this the whole show. I think we want to get over on some of these lower owned pitchers who have some potential. I think Cameron's one of those pitchers. But again, we're going to want Tampa stacks also. So in my 150 builds, without a doubt, Tampa stacks will be up there. Morrill, Diaz, Simpson all rate out really well on the Boom Report. Not the prices aren't really crazy here, so we're getting some decent prices on those bats. We never really liked the Kansas City bats. I mean, it is a good ballpark. It is hot here, as you said, and humid, so the ball should be traveling fairly well. But I think we want to stick to the Tampa bats in this game. I'm going to avoid the KC bats.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not a ton of interest in KC. Favorite play over there would be Pasquantino. Swinging from the left side, he's cheap, hitting third, 3,100. Could see a home run out to right field for him. But overall, not a lot of interest. Already mentioned the 2-3-4 stack for the Rays that I really like. Obviously, you can extend that to 5-man if you want. And then, Rasmussen just doesn't go deep into games. That's part of the problem. I do think he's capable of it, so I'm sure he'll get some longer starts throughout the year, but it's just kind of hard to buy in at the 8,800. I do like both Boyd and Sanchez better than Rasmussen, but I think Rasmussen in the mix if you're playing multiple teams. And then, I will have some Noah Cameron. Honestly, I think a lot of my teams might have either Cameron or that 2-3-4 Rays stack. I think one of those two is going to get there. Could see it being either
20,
one, but
in your 20 builds.
Yeah, exactly.
20 max. Yeah. That's what I'm fine with that.
Yeah. That's KC and Tampa Bay. Let's keep it moving to the second half of the slate. Boston and Toronto up next. Red Sox coming off a nuclear game against Bowden Francis, just hitting absolute bombs yesterday. I think they hit 4 of them. I know Duran got one, Bregman got one, Devers got one, and Abreu got one. So at least those 4. Yesterday was a rough slate for me, so I didn't finish out I switched it off and went and watched some hoops. So maybe they got some late too, but it didn't matter for me at that point. Red Sox back in a good spot here. Stats against a bullpen game, it looks like, for the Blue Jays. Going to be Yariel Rodriguez opening up. Certainly a good, first inning matchup for the Red Sox. We'll see how long he goes. And then I think it's going to be the lefty Eric Lauer, who I think is going to be the long man here. He's not really any good either. So I do think the Red Sox back in a pretty good spot here against the Blue Jays. And as much as I like the Red Sox, who are my second favorite stack, the Blue Jays are first for me. They'll go up against Lucas Giolito here, who has not pitched since 2023 when he pitched for 3 different teams. He pitched for the White Sox for the majority of the year. And then I believe he pitched for the Angels and I think one other team as well. Bigger point stats. He gave up 41 combined home runs back in 2023. Dude was getting absolutely nuked. Then I think he had Tommy John surgery, missed all of last year. And then it really hasn't been going all that well for him in the minor leagues. I just don't see Giolito coming back and looking good. It's been a long time since he's been an effective pitcher. And I know you're the same way, this Blue Jay stack in general, but I'll make an exception tonight against Giolito, who, man, he can be wild. You can run on him. Not that the Jays have that much speed, but I just think he could absolutely implode, which is the pitchers that I really do love to stack against. So in on the Blue Jays and on the Red Sox here, I'll be hoping for some runs in Toronto tonight. Hitters, umpire as well, definitely doesn't help Lucas Giolito, who can be wild at times. Your thoughts or your stats on Blue Jays and Red Sox, rather.
Yeah, and I think Sabres projecting Eric Lauer in there, so I don't know. I guess maybe coming out of the pen. I don't know.
I think he'll be in there the second or third inning, and probably for 3 or 4 innings would be my guess.
Yeah, my buddy Yariel Rodriguez, my buddy, he just moved.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he just moved down. He actually just bought a house not too far from me. So he's a good friend, childhood friend of my contractor. So I always pull for him. But yeah, no, this certainly doesn't look like this looks like it's going to be more of an offensive game here. So we're looking at both sides. I can't see really taking much in the way of pitching. Giolito just rates really poorly that the strikeout number's low. He's fourth worst option on the slate. Not going to consider any pitching for this game. But the offenses, I think both offenses are in play. Now, the Boston offense, I think it's the number one stack overall on the Boom report. I think it rates out as the top stack it does for the 5-man stacks. So obviously we're going to be looking to get some Boston in there. But I think we typically don't like to play these Toronto stacks, but I don't mind them in secondary stacks here tonight. Santander for sure. Varsho, Springer. We've got enough home run potential from these guys at relatively, I would assume, low ownership. I'll pull it up now. The Toronto bats, yeah, I mean, not single digits. It's pretty much, like I said, everything's going to be kind of spread out on tonight's slate with ownership. But I think we could play some of these bats that some of the better home run bats in secondary lineups for Toronto. But the Boston lineup, I think you can hammer this one. I'm good with like kind of shoving heavily on the Red Sox lineup tonight for sure.
Yeah, sounds like you like the Red Sox better than maybe the Cubs. I could see those.
I like it a little bit more. Yeah, I do.
Kind of similar, right? You got to choose between the two a little bit because a lot of outfielders in play. Most of the guys that you want on both teams are pretty expensive, so kind of hard to combine the two. And I'm with you. Give me the Red Sox over the Cubs very slightly, and the Blue Jays, actually my favorite stack. Honestly, it's mostly play against Giolito, who I've seen this. I've watched him pitch enough where I'm just not going to be surprised if it's like 4 balls to Bo Bichette to open the game, and the Blue Jay stack is just off to the races. He can't throw strikes, falling behind hitters. Comes in he likes to work up in the zone with a mediocre fastball that used to work for him, and yeah, I think the Blue Jay is going to get some really, really good swings in good counts off Giolito, and I think they're going to do some damage. So very much in on the Blue Jays. It is mostly the top of the lineup that I want from the Blue Jays. It falls off in a hurry, I think, after Varsho. But yeah, Bichette to some extent. And then it's really that 2 through 5. Vlad, Santander, Springer, Varsho. I think that looks best for the Blue Jays. I see you nodding in agreement there. And then the Red Sox is kind of 1 through 7, I would say. All looks good to me. I'm expecting runs here in Toronto. It sounds like you're the same way. So hopefully we'll see some fireworks between the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. Let's keep it moving to the next game on the slate. We go to the New York Mets, Diamondbacks and Mets here. Bit of a bullpen game looks like for the Mets as well. They're going to go with Huáscar Brazoban to open the game. Has pitched well for the Mets out of the pen so far, so we'll see if he can keep the D-back stack in check early on. And then Brandon Waddle, I believe, is going to be the long man for the D-backs or for the Mets, rather. You never know for sure, right? These teams aren't obligated to bring in these guys, but I do think that's probably the plan for the Mets here. The Diamondbacks will go with Corbin Burns, who is coming off arguably his best outing of the season against the Rays. He get 8 strikeouts in that one. They'd been missing from him for the most part. Had 3 straight games with 3 strikeouts prior to that game against the Rays. I'm not a believer in Corbin Burns right now, not that he's a terrible pitcher, but I do think he is very, very diminished from, there was a 2-3 year stretch there where he was one of the top arms in all of baseball. I think those days are behind him. Doesn't mean I'm dying to play the Mets here. I do think Lindor and Soto in particular up top look pretty good to me, but I don't know if I'm full stack in the Mets. What about you, Stats? Where'd you end up with D-backs and Mets here?
Yeah, so I will start with Burns. 5.5 strikeouts, juice to the under. One of the better strikeout numbers, at least one of the as far as the prop markets go on the slate, but doesn't really project out well for me. And at the 9K, that's part of the reason. So I've got him in the second half of pitchers for the entire slate. So I'm going to use him, but sparingly. The question for me at the pitcher is, do you play Waddle, at the 4K? And I think you want to get a little bit Certainly in my 150, I think I'm going to play. I'm going to have a bit. Good strikeout. We'll get good K per inning. We're not going to obviously throw a ton of innings here, but we can get a decent amount of Ks again at that 4K price, potentially, like we were talking about with Cameron. So I think Waddle gets in the mix on a slate where, who knows? I mean, none of these pitchers go off. We might only need 8 points out of a pitcher with the right stack to get there. So Waddle's going to be in the mix. 5 to 10%, I think, is okay. Probably closer to the 5. But the bats, I agree. As I'm not heavily on Burns, but I don't know if I love these Met stacks either. Gonna have a bit of it, like you said, the big home run bats. I think you could play Pete. Vientos at the price 3,400 looks good. Lindor, Soto, the usual names there are all decent plays. I think the Arizona side I'd prefer in 3 to 5 man stacks. Carroll, Grichuk, Suarez all come out. Grichuk at the 2,700 with a decent probability and prop markets on his home runs, projects out well. So I think I'm looking more the Arizona bats. We'll play some New York bats as well, but I'm going to stick primarily to maybe secondary stacks with some of the bigger home run bats in the Met lineup. And I think you could play. I think Waddle's in play for in all different, for 150 lineups for sure. And if you want to throw him in, I know that's you like to throw in these 4K pitchers, so I'd be shocked if you're not going to have one or two in your 20.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the matchup with the D-backs. I don't love the fact that he's not guaranteed to get into the game. Always makes me a little nervous. I just prefer the other 4K pitcher.
Cameron.
Yeah. Do you have a preference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Waddle they're really close. I have him slightly higher, but if you factor in there's some uncertainty if he actually does get in there, then obviously you're going to give the bump to Cameron. But I've got him really, really close. And I'll have a little bit more Cameron for that reason, even though I've got Waddle. Waddle just rates out higher because his K potential is a little bit better.
Yeah. So Waddle last pitched on April 25th in AAA. So he is rested on his normal, amount of rest. It does seem like he will probably get in. I think that's by far the most likely scenario. Been throwing, so 4 2/3, 5, 6, and 4 innings in his last 4 outings, and right around an average of 80 pitches in those 4. So in theory, right, could go 4 or 5 innings if things are going well. Again, I'm not sure that they're going to go well, even when he's in there against the D-backs. I think I have a little more faith in Cameron, but I get it with Waddle. I haven't tried building with both of them in there and just taking all the best bats.
That would be interesting. Yeah. But the one, that is definitely a DC move. But the one interesting, or the one good thing is he might get in there for the bottom half of the line. He might not be facing the top of the lineup. More than likely, he's not going to be facing the top of the lineup when he comes into the game. So maybe gives him a couple of trips around with the bottom of the lineup, maybe a benefit. But I think those guys are close. I do not think it's out of the question to play both 4K pitchers here tonight. Yeah,
there's enough big bats to spend on. That's kind of one of the questions, right? Is there legit like boppers that you can spend the salary on? And tonight I do think there is. So I'm with you there.
Someone did mention the walks, and he is one of the higher walk per inning guys on the slate tonight. So that is a bit of a negative. Good ballpark though.
Yeah. Reverse splits this year in the minor leagues, but I don't know. Small sample size wouldn't take too much into account there. Let's get to the Milwaukee Brewers, Chicago White Sox in guaranteed rate field. Moderate temperatures here, 50 degrees. A little bit of winds blowing in, so should be a pitcher-friendly park tonight in Chicago. Shane Smith going for the White Sox. Been one of the very few bright spots for this team in the pitching staff, I guess anywhere on the team, but in the pitching staff. Smith has been pretty good. He's kept the ball on the ground for the most part. Hasn't allowed a single steal on the entire year, which obviously would be detrimental to Milwaukee if he's able to control their running game one of the biggest things they do on offense. And then Tobias Myers will make his second appearance of the year. First one, a little bit rough against the Giants. 4 walks, just 2 strikeouts over 4 innings. He does, of course, Myers, get the fantastic matchup against the White Sox. So any pitcher against the White Sox is at least worthy of some discussion. Curious where he ended up with Myers. And then, Shane Smith. Any interest there against the Brewers? I don't think I can do it, but I am much lower on the Brewers than I typically am. I think Smith has at least a decent chance to slow this team down. Your thoughts, your stats, Brewers and White Sox?
I don't particularly care for this game pitching wise or hitting wise. It's like gonna be very low owned all the way around for me. Smith is 4.5 in the prop market on the K's, heavily juiced -2 to 200 on the under, with Myers at 4.5 and pretty much even there. So the projection's right around 4.5 strikeouts. I've got Smith, third worst pitcher for me on the slate. He's got the worst walk rate per inning projected out in this game, with a very low K per inning total. So projection wise, so really not something I'm looking. Smith's definitely not one that I'm looking at. And then Myers, he falls in like right under Burns for me. If I use him, it's going to be very, very sparingly. Like you said, there's always some upside there when you face the White Sox as a pitcher. But again, his K numbers just it's hard to get there for me. One of the worst K per inning guys on the slate. Both of them here on this one down near the bottom. So I don't really love the pitching, and can't really say that I'm in love with the hitting. I think you could take Milwaukee bats as kind of maybe a one-off, or as a 2-man stack, maybe a 3-man stack. But I'm having them sparingly. White Sox I'm avoiding. Don't like anything on the White Sox side.
Yeah, pretty much agree with you. I think if people plan just a few lineups, this is a good game to cross off and focus on the other 8 games, because you just don't need a lot here. I don't see a ton of upside from either side. I'm sure this will be the game that the Brewers really get going, though. Then I'm off of them on this one. Let's get to the last game on the slate. We go to Texas. It's going to be a fast and furious slate. No West Coast games at all tonight, which is pretty unusual. This one we get 2 good pitchers. Nathan Eovaldi been quite good for the Rangers so far on the year. He'll take on the A's, who obviously have a more dangerous offense than I think people anticipated, at least coming into the year. And then Luis Severino, who's been rock solid for the Athletics as well, take on this Rangers team, which is starting to come alive a little bit. Had a big day yesterday. I still think an offense that you can attack with a pitcher like Severino. I think both these guys are decent plays. I think 4th and 5th for me in terms of pitching on this slate. Good options, not my favorite options, and I'm mostly out on the bats here. Two pretty good pitchers. Your thoughts here? Stats, A's and Rangers.
Yeah, so I mean, Eovaldi is going to rate out second best pitcher on the slate for me behind Sanchez. So I will definitely have a decent amount. I do agree with you. I think the Athletic bat, I don't know if everyone realizes maybe how good the Athletic bats could be, but I think even better at home, at whatever home they're playing at this year, but much better certainly than if they were back in Oakland for sure. Severino's not rating out. It's the strikeouts that are hurting him here for me. I think it's the only one worse is Carrasco on the slate, K per innings. So I don't have him particularly high, and consequently, the Rangers are really projecting well as just a straight. Just looking at the boom scores here for the top 5 in their lineup, and when you look at it based on salary, they wind up being the best value on the slate. So I think the Rangers will be in the mix for sure for me for stacks. I think I'm going to want to get over the market on these guys who we're projecting Langford as the highest owned in that lineup at 10%. So I think for me, I am going to want to get fairly heavy here on that on those Texas stacks, because you got guys in the lineup. You've got guys like Berger with homer. He's why the boomer bust or the boom sheet was kind of invented, right? Because he's going to be a really big boomer bust type of player at that price tag of 2,700. Got the, we got close to a 19% probability on a home run from him tonight. So a 2,700 no brainer. Peterson, similar boat, 2,400, 15.5% probability of hitting a home run at 2,400. We like that. So I think we've got, when you mix him in, with the Langford at, you look at Langford, like he's got basically the same probability of hitting a home run as Berger. Now he's got the speed aspect there. He can steal some bases, and that's a bit of an advantage that you'll have. So if you're going to play a one-off, obviously 5K, you're going to have, it's a big difference from the 2,700, but I do like having a guy like Langford as a one-off. But I think the Texas stacks here look good. Didn't mention Garcia, another one of the guys in the Texas lineup, 3,800, rates out at that the elite level. So we've got 4 guys in the Texas lineup rate at the elite level. If you look at the A side, you've got Rooker, who's always a potential home run threat. Butler, both the power and speed. So I do think there's some viable athletic plays if you want to take that fade leverage play against an Eovaldi. So some lineups that you don't have Eovaldi, I don't think mixing in some A's here is necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, guys like you mentioned, Berger and Jock Peterson are kind of like the prototypical, players who are going to rate higher on the boom report than they do in projections, because they're fairly likely, right, to just take a straight up 0 or a 2 with a walk, but the home run probability is high. So you're really looking for that one swing of the bat to get there, and they're cheap enough to do it. So good call there on Peterson and Berger. I think that makes a lot of sense against Severino, who does give up his fair share of home runs. All right, that is all 9 games. Let's go quickly back through some of our favorite plays, and we'll get out of here, get core plays up, get content up, and get our lineups in with the early lock today. Stats, your favorite pitching combination on DraftKings tonight.
It's brutal, man. But I'll say Sanchez, even though I said get under on him, but he's the best option on the slate. Game theory wise, you might want to get under. We'll pretend this is single entry. I would have in the single entry, I'll have Sanchez, and I'm probably going to go with Cameron.
That's
I know.
That's my answer too. Sanchez.
Was it really? Was that your?
Yeah.
I'll get off it. I'll be a little more risky, and I'll take Waddle because they're so close for me.
We got the injured Chalk Sanchez and the 2 4K rookies. So I'm sure
shove it all in.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll end well.
Play 20 or 30K tonight.
But we are on the same page there. Stats. Give me your top 2 stacks on the night.
Yeah, I think the Yankees for me, and I'm going to say just because of the price. We don't necessarily need to do much savings. You know what? I'm going to get off Texas because we don't really need the savings. So I don't think I'm going to have as much Texas. I think it's going to be Boston. So I think it's the Yankees and Boston here tonight.
Yeah, and I don't love doing it on the same team, but I do have the Red Sox and the Blue Jays as my 1 and 2. But I do prefer to separate them with the 5-man and go to a different mini stack instead of the full-on game stack, hoping for the blowout where you get the real bad pitchers in there at the end of the game. Finally, Stats, give us a home run call. Who's going deep tonight?
Oh, God, let's see. I'm going to go with give me Santander. I'll stick with your Toronto. I know you like Toronto, and I was looking at him before. I think he gets one here.
All right, I'll join you. We'll do a little 2-3-man stack there. Vladdy gets another one. Took Crochet deep. I bet he gets hot and gets one off of Giolito here. That'll do it for this show. I think we got enough games on Thursday for a show with me and JT. So we'll see all you guys then. Sorry about the late start today. My bad. And we'll see you then. For Stats, I am DC, and we're out of here.